Hey, welcome back. You're in the garden with Bree on a very bright evening here in May. And this is our May in the Garden video. So we're going to talk about some things that are growing, do a pretty full tour of everything because, of course, there's a lot to see. We're going to focus on our bog garden, really Nate's bog garden, which you will see why when we get there. And I'm going to go ahead and harvest some potatoes live with you for the first time to see if my potatoes are ready yet. So really excited about that. But first, we have to see the progress of this front flower bed from the March garden tour. Go back, tune into that real quick. This was just getting started and now it is just beautiful and colorful. This is what I envisioned when I created this space 3 years ago, and it really is starting to come to full fruition. So we have our beautiful native, just prolific blanket flower. It's so pretty and yellow and pink is pinkish red. The asters just started blooming. There's bees everywhere all over this. This whole section is meant to be pollinator paradise. 95-98% native species, but the aster is beautiful. Some random snapdragons that popped up, I didn't even know about those. This is really cool. So the baptisia I think was blooming in the March garden tour, so that is working its way out. We have a few, the false indigo. Yeah, so the fruits, that's what I was going to show you. Super cool. I've never seen this. This year, this white false indigo I've had for 6 years now is shooting off these super cool seed pods, and we haven't had that yet. So I'm excited to harvest those seeds. The prickly pear just flowered, but that's put on a bunch of growth. I mean, it's just, look how beautiful this is. I get to drive into my driveway and see all this native plant beneficial flora beauty. So very exciting. And May flowers, as they say, that's what happens. Okay, so quickly, I wanted to show you this new planting space that I had in my mind in the works for a little while, a year or two. And I finally did it in front of our deck here that we're hoping to expand someday. So I needed a temporary space just to, again, kill as much grass as I can. And I figured this would be a great spot to just have a random intercropped area of all the extra plants I have, which is what I did. The way I created this was I put black plastic over it just for 3 months, and it worked out amazing. So now I have all my extra pepper plants here. I'm gonna plant some winter squash. I wanted some extra winter squash, so that's down here, and that will hopefully vine around. And then my tomatoes, all my extra tomatoes are going to be right at my porch, and I'm hoping that kind of is a barrier for the deer and they don't get as close to the porch. But it's an experiment, but again, less grass is better, and I'm happy to see how it progresses, and I'm going to show you that over the coming growing season. Okay. We're back at the herb garden. This doesn't need too much in-depth exploration right now, but I just wanted to show you even more than April how it is just exploded. And you can see, I mean, the elder is like a beautiful small tree now, and it's just so amazing. This is my dream witchy herb garden right here, and they say the 3rd year for perennials is when they really pop off, and I found that to be true. The one exciting one I do want to show you up close, and I talked about how this was popping up, is flowering already. It's also known as May pop, which I forgot to mention, and that's because it pops off in May. And look at all these bees! The passion flower is flowering. I mean, it is the world's most beautiful, coolest flower. It's native here. It is so medicinal. I think it's my favorite plant, my favorite flower. But look at the bees love it. And it's everywhere. It's amazing. It's so beautiful. And it'll fruit. It'll send off passion fruit in the fall, late summer. And that's pretty cool. So that's an exciting development here in the herb patch. All right.
Hey everyone, my name's Nate. I'm a biologist. I've been interested in all sorts of things from snakes and turtles to plants to bears to everything. And so my primary interest is in the longleaf pine ecosystem, which is in the southeastern United States. It's a fire maintained ecosystem that has some of the highest botanical and animal diversity anywhere on the planet. And part of that is here with my bog garden is I try to mimic plants that I enjoy seeing out in nature, in the wild. So in this bog garden, I grow a variety of carnivorous plants and plants that I call associate plants, plants that you would see in the same similar habitats as you see carnivorous plants. Um, so the most obvious one are the North American pitcher plants. I got several species. Carnivorous plants feed on mostly insects, but they feed on animals through several ways, and it's because they live in nutrient poor habitats and they need to supplement, uh, their diet to be able to survive in those habitats. And so you have pitcher plants that attract insects by their secretions, and then they fall in the trap and get digested in the different juices. And then, well, and then on purple pictures, you can really see, because they're a little different. So they have really obvious hair-like structures that are backwards bending. So the insects can't crawl out, they can fall down. Um, and then some others like the sundew, the sap is on the outside, and they're very sticky, and insects just get stuck. You can probably see some in there, just get stuck on there, and they get digested in those sap juices. I call it sap, but it's really digestive enzymes. And the one that's kind of emblematic in our culture anyway is the Venus flytrap. And you can see some large traps here, and here's the Venus flytrap flower. This species that's endemic to North Carolina and South Carolina. It's only found anywhere in the world in the Carolinas, and 90% of the populations are in North Carolina. But they actually physically catch insects, mostly spiders for mine, in the traps. So May is a magical time in the bog garden. It's the time of year where we have all the new pitcher plant growth. And back in March and in April, we had flowers, but they're still visible throughout the year until the fall. But you got new pitcher plants. You got your sundews kind of in peak form. They're about to flower soon. So everything's really vibrant this time of year in the bog garden. Yes, I was just going to talk over some of the specific species I have. So I will say, some of them I don't know their common name. I'm too much of a nerd. So this one's down from like Texas Gulf Coast. This one's Sarracenia alata. I can't remember the common name of that species. Okay. Over here we have I don't remember the common name of this species either. This is Sarracenia leucophylla. So pretty. Another Gulf Coast endemic. So pretty. And then these over here are very common in North Carolina. These are our yellow pitcher plant, or Sarracenia flava. And this is kind of the plain yellow pitcher plant, a little bit of red in the veins, whereas you come over here, you get the copper top, which, so all these pitcher plants have varieties that pop up in populations. They all, same species, but just different looks, even in the same population. And then over here I have some purple pitcher plants down here that have several flowers, doing well. And then these guys are cultivar. So these are not how the native pitcher plants look. These are selectively bred with leucophylla and flava and some other species to make them appear the way they are. And there's many cultivars of pitcher plants. Okay. So being a fan of longleaf pine forests and pitcher plants and bogs and all things coastal, I have to include in my bog trays some of the associate species. And some aren't really showy this time of year, but this is all a solidago, which is a goldenrod species. And this is actually a fairly rare one in the state. It's not really a rare species, but it's definitely not common. And then you have bog Cheetos, which the really nice ones are over here for some reason this year. So probably my favorite wildflower in North Carolina. This is the yellow milkwort, or I call bog Cheeto.
I wonder why. Why are they called bog?
Well, they're delicious like Cheetos. No, they look like Cheetos. Um, I also have hat pins. This is the mini hat pin. There's several species, but they just kind of look like, like a hat pin. Yeah. This is their flowers. In addition to those, I have some orchids. They just passed their prime. Last week they were looking really nice. Um, little tiny little orchids. Um, and in the middle of summer, my orange fringed orchids might actually be blooming. We'll see. I planted some of those I bought online last year. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I have some other plants that aren't showy this time of year, like these guys.
Is there anything else about the sundew?
Well, so for whatever reason, um, these are very rare species. There's only like a few populations in North Carolina and mostly further south. But they're the only species that does well in my trays, and I have hundreds of them. I produce thousands of seeds every year. So in the wild, these areas these plants grow is maintained with natural growing season fire that keeps them open canopy. These species, all of them, enjoy pure 100% sunlight, or as close to full sun all the time as you can get. Um, and to mimic that, in the spring, I often burn these areas, and you can kind of see how this burned pretty open, but like fire didn't really get into that area. So I either burn, or sometimes I'll go in and manually, chip the non-green stuff off. I'll clip it all off. But I just want to get the sun down to the rhizomes, and that speeds up all the growth. Um, One important thing, if you're ever thinking about keeping any of these species, especially fly traps, but any of these carnivorous plants, is that the North American species need to have a time of year where they're cold. They need to brumate at some point. You can keep a fly trap indoors for about 2 years and then it'll die. It has to go through a cycle. I've been keeping carnivorous plants for, I don't know, 12, 13 years, and I've always kept them outdoors. There's no real reason to keep them indoors. They do much better out here.
Have you ever seen a mutant Venus flytrap that's like the size of a car that has eaten somebody?
No.
Okay. And we're back in the veg garden, which is just looking like a garden this year. I'm so pleased with it. It is pretty much all planted out. We're going to talk about what's left in a little bit, but I mean, look how happy it is. It's looking so beautiful and pretty and like a really lovely working garden. So we have all sorts of pumpkins I'll talk about. We got peppers, we got melons, cantaloupe, watermelon, tomatillos, black beans, tomatoes, corn, which you saw, squash, green beans, winter squash, potatoes, which are going to come out soon. And yeah, it's just freaking gorgeous. I'm so excited. So the pumpkins I'm growing this year, because last year was the first year I ever grew pumpkins and it was so fun. So I am going all out now. And like I said, Nate bought me some pumpkins for my birthday. It's in the fall, so it was a great time to get pumpkin seeds. And so we have over here our giant pumpkins. We don't know how giant they're going to get, but we're going to try. And so they're already looking so good, happy and sprouting their little mounds. Yes, it's a little weedy, but you know what? It's gonna be fine. Over here, I want to talk about this because I think it's hilarious what I did. These are the sugar pumpkins. So these are the smaller ones specifically to reach my garden goal, which I've talked about, of making homemade pumpkin pie from my own homegrown pumpkins. These are going to be my sugar pie pumpkins. And you'll see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 5 mounds of pumpkins that I started in like a 16-foot 8-foot bed. And that's because I misread the packet. So I was putting these in the ground a few weeks ago, and I looked at the back of the packet multiple times, and I was like, huh, that seems weird. 8 to 12 inches apart, I was like, well, they're small pumpkins. Maybe that's fine. Like normal spacing for other plants is like, you know, a foot to 2 feet. So I did like more like 2 to 3 feet between the mounds because I thought that was weird. And then I like later on that day, I was like, let me double check that. I just like, I don't trust this because I went to plant the giant pumpkin and that was 8 to 12 feet apart. Did I say inches? Okay. So then I looked back at the packet for these pumpkins and it was 8 to 12 feet apart. But you know what? I'm going to be a pumpkin rebel and this might be a terrible idea or it might be fine. So I left it and I said, let's see how close together I can plant some pumpkins. So that's the story with these. And yeah, so these weeds, I gotta come here and weed these for sure. This is, I can't remember the name, but it's this a really annoying weed that pops up in the South. It's like a sweet potato vine mimic, and it's just obnoxious. So once I had cleared this bed, that all just like came in and took over, but it's okay. So these pumpkins are looking good though. Look at those pumpkins. Hopefully they have enough room. They'll be able to sprawl out, so that should be fine. Double, triple, quadruple check the back of your seed packets though. Okay. I thought that was funny. So I want to go ahead and check on these potatoes with you live right now. I don't know what the situation is. I think, you know, by the time, you know, my timetable of when they should be ready, and then looking at this like die off with the tops of the potato plants, should be ready to harvest. Now, this is only my 3rd time growing potatoes, and the first 2 times were not good. So we're gonna see what we get. And these are red gold potatoes, so they're meant to be smaller. They're like a 65 to 70 day maturity time. And like, what's interesting is one of these plants has like completely died. I don't think that's a good sign, but when they start to turn yellow and kind of flop over, that is supposed to be a sign that they're ready. So I'm just gonna go in with this one that died and we're gonna see what happens. And I'm gonna hope that the fire ants are just not too aggressive right now. Oh, I see a potato. That's fantastic. That's a perfect little red potato. Look at that. Okay. I don't know if we're going to get more than one. Let's see. Get these weeds out of here. You gotta be careful with potatoes because you don't want to injure. See, do I have a bug on me? No. You don't want to. Oh, there's some more. Okay. All right. Little baby guy. How deep does it go? Oh, goodness. So we've had too much rain lately. It's actually been a problem. So these are very small. The ground is like oversaturated. See, I think this plant just died before it could mature. There's like little baby taties. Taties, people, taties. Oh, see, look at this. There's the rotten, that's some rotten potato. So that's what I'm worried about. Like, our soil's really well draining, but it's been so wet. We're having like mold issues in the garden too, but maybe we'll talk about that, maybe not. But we got one little tatey, so I'm gonna pull up the rest of this moldy one. Okay. It's so wet and compacted. Okay. This is better. This guy. 2 JDs. So for me, this can be the problem with potatoes, right? And I know other people said this, like, is it really worth it? Like, I bought this many potato starts, and like, probably for the cost of what I spend on bags of potatoes annually. Like, I love potatoes. I don't buy that many. But so if all I do is like double that even, which I don't even know if I will, I don't know if it's worth it. Because, you know, they also are taking up the space in my garden that I want to be planting my summer plants in. So I'm going to be weighing those options. But yeah, that plant had 2 potatoes on it. One tiny little one. All right. Let's try this one. Okay, so far, not looking too good. I am gonna leave, the rest of these plants are looking fine. So I'm gonna let it go as long as I can, check on them again in a week at least. But I need this bed to be ready by like really June 15th at the latest. I need to turn over this bed to plant my ornamental pumpkins in. So that's the other variety of pumpkins I'm planting. Now, there's an empty space here. That I can start the pumpkins in. So I probably will kind of intercrop until I think these potatoes are mature enough and have had gotten, you know, more time to produce. But this is from 3 potato plants, and they've been in the ground for, you know, at least 65 days. I'll go back and check, but they're coming up to the maturity date. So yeah. Are you good?
Yeah.
Are you filming?
I'm still filming.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to use my favorite new expression that I just learned recently. I think with potatoes, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. Comment, let me know what you think. But time will tell. I love that expression. Real quick, I will just talk about the kind of mold issue I'm dealing with at the moment. So this is an example. I believe it is a type of sooty mold. Regardless, we know it's a fungus. Like, look, you can tell how it grows, and when you touch it, it kind of like spreads in a dusty way, which I don't want to keep doing. But you know, I've noticed it on various parts of the ground, including outside the garden. I saw it last year on the grass, but I don't think it spread as prolifically last year, as, you know, it's probably a seasonal thing. But like I said, it has just been so wet so frequently close together that I think it just spread. So there's some plants I'm monitoring. I've sprayed neem, like targeted on the ones I need to. I don't like the broadcast neem. I really try to avoid using it in large quantities. But in this case, it is helping, and I'm just going to keep an eye on it. I read that it's not fatal. It shouldn't be a big deal, obviously, unless it starts to cover all the leaves in the whole plant, because then it can't photosynthesize. But I'm hoping it just like makes its way through the garden and it kind of dies off soon when we get some hot, dry weather, which June usually is drier. So hopefully that's the case. If you know more about this, let me know, please. There's not much information I could find, and I'm pretty good at researching. So, okay. Quick berry update. So exciting! We have our first raspberry coming in, and I'm going to protect it with my life because it's at the fence line and I'm afraid a deer is going to get it, but that is super exciting. Oh my god, there's more. Yeah, this is going to be, y'all, I can't even. I'm going to be so excited. I see more coming in. Oh my god. So I feel like I might have to cover this to protect it from the frickin' birds. But the strawberries, you know, that update is insane. What is the total at this point?
I keep saying 20 pounds.
I think it's been more than 20 pounds at this point. I think we're pushing 30 pounds of strawberries harvested since like beginning of April. And so they're winding down, but we still, like, I have to come back out and actually probably harvest some today. Like, there's still some growing in here, And I can't believe I would say this, but I might be sick of strawberries at the moment. Such a good problem to have. I've been giving them away, like to strangers if I can. But that's amazing. Amazing. So thank you, berry gods. Okay. A few other things I wanted to mention that kind of slipped our minds because the sun was really getting to us earlier, but I wanted to come back and just talk specifically about some more things that have been going on this whole month in the garden and things to come. So one of those is I mentioned where the red gold potatoes are is going to be ornamental pumpkins. Really excited for that. We're going to grow our own jack-o'-lanterns again, just like we did last year. So fun to have our homegrown Halloween decorations. This bed here is going to be another bed. We're going to do two beds of pumpkins, ornamental pumpkins this year. This is where my really super sad broccoli and Romanesco crop was, where there was so much growth, but it just was too hot in the end, the whole winter and spring for them to form a head. So I had like 15, maybe more plants in this bed and didn't get one head of Romanesco or broccoli. But anyway, I turned this bed over. I'm going to plant those soon. So they'll get a head start, and then when the potatoes come up, I'll plant the other ones. So there'll be a nice little, slightly successional iteration of those types of pumpkins. The other thing is, I just want to mention this black plastic that we see here. So we all know I hate grass. I hate it. There's too much of it. It's stupid. So it's my enemy, my mortal enemy. And there's just this one section of the garden here with like the edging paths that I just can't get rid of the grass. So unfortunately, that black plastic's probably going to be here all season to solarize the heck out of it and then hopefully prevent it from coming back in the future, because your girl can't keep bringing wheelbarrows of mulch out here. I just can't. And it's not working. So that's just for the paths. I don't feel too bad about that. It's fine. Let's see what else. The other really exciting thing that happened this month, just a couple weeks ago, sooner than expected, was we harvested the garlic. So you might have noticed that was missing from the spots where it had been in the previous garden tours and other footage and things like that. So there was a big patch here, a patch over in the bed next to it, some random plantings. I had fully expected that to be next week, maybe even beginning of June. But again, I think it was so warm and they were fully mature. So I'm going to put some footage up of that we took. I did a short on that as well because it was so unexpected. I was not ready to harvest the garlic. But it came out amazing. Every single clove I planted bulbed out. We only had a few, maybe like 3 to 4 bulbs that were pretty small. The rest are perfect size or huge, like the size of my hand or larger. We probably have like half a dozen of those. And I'm gonna save those giant cloves to plant next year. So garlic was super exciting. I could tell it was ready because those outer lower bottom 3 to 4 leaves had died back. They were falling over. And I took one bulb out to check and it was clear that they were ready to go. I didn't want to let them go too long. So the garlic came up. We got 46 bulbs of garlic in total. Awesome. Like, grow garlic. It's so fun. It's so easy. Yes, and delicious. And then so hopefully I'll show you some ways I'm going to preserve it and use it, not just, using the fresh cloves, but I want to make garlic powder. We also have been getting great little pea harvests, a little bit every day, but enough to make and put in quite a few meals. And I also got a small little carrot harvest as well. And lastly, of things to come, so in this bed here where the Kennebec potatoes are, they're a little bit longer of maturity time, which is fine. I planned that out. And then the bed over here where the garlic was, and I planted some squash to get like one round of squash before I needed the bed, thinking they would mature at the same time as the garlic. It's fine that they didn't. But these two beds here come the first 2 weeks of June, again by mid-June, they'll get sweet potatoes. So my sweet potato slips are currently hardening off outside. I have a ton, so I'm hoping those are going to do well, and we'll get a good, again, 2 beds this year instead of 1 bed of sweet potatoes. And honestly, if this squash isn't fully mature by the time that happens, I can intercrop for a little while until the sweet potatoes mature. Same thing with these potatoes. If they end up needing more time, we'll be able to do it because we have some empty spaces already for sweet potatoes to go in. We luckily here have a really long, wonderful growing season. Our first frost is generally not until the beginning of November here in the Piedmont of North Carolina. One last beautiful superstar I need to give a shout out to, you probably saw it in the background of the video, is this beautiful hollyhock. And look, there's a little bee sleeping in it. Oh my. This hollyhock was a volunteer from last year. It started coming up early spring, and it's gorgeous and I love it. And it's adding so much flair already to the garden when there's not much color here yet. Beautiful hollyhock.